Welcome to the Impact Voices podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Madi. On this podcast, I'm sharing some of my many wisdom ideas meant to impact your life, career, and business for the better. I also interview some of the world's most important influencers and impact creators to share their work, wisdom, and motivation. Thank you for listening today, and if you enjoyed this episode, give me a 5-star on your favorite podcast platform, and let's grow this podcast together. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy here, Rudy, again on the Impact Voices show. I'm really excited for you guys because I have an amazing guest today. He's one of those young, famous people that you've probably never heard of, but he's young, amazing, and the work that he's doing is creating a significant impact in the lives of not just Africans, but all. It's actually creating impact in the lives of the whole world because we have people traveling from all over the world going to see him and his company and what they're doing. I have Mr. Kweku from Seso Global. Seso Global is call it the Zillow of Africa, right? If you know about Zillow is one of those real estate managing platforms, and Mr. Kweku and his team are managing all the real estate investments in Africa, currently based in Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. Mr. Kweku, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, Rudolph. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so thanks so much for coming on the show. You know, where we got connected on LinkedIn and also just been having our normal chat, I was excited to hear about the amazing work that you guys are doing. I know you currently have other investments and other businesses that you're currently managing, but for today we're going to be primarily going to be talking about the Seso Global. I know you're the Chief Commercial Officer of Seso Global. Why don't you tell the audience about yourself and what you guys have been doing so far?
Thank you. So again, I'm really happy that you got me here to share with your audience. So I was born and raised in Ghana, but spent about a decade in Canada, and I was lucky enough to have an employer that shipped me around to parts of East Africa, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa. And I learned quite a bit about what's going on out there in the rest of the continent and what the opportunities are. And obviously there are problems, but all of those problems are actually opportunities if you really look at it in a certain light. And so I'm deciding that I decided to come back to Ghana, and I helped start this company, Seso Global, which sort of takes a good amount of my time, and a company that I really believe in, just because I really, and this was through my experience in my past work, you begin to understand that land is actually, in my opinion, the most important thing important issue on the continent. And making sure that there's trust, transparency within that sector, I think is very important because it allows us to grow wealth. You really think about it, there are a lot of chiefs, families out there who own prime land all across Africa, but have been unable to utilize it. And some of that is due to, the perceived and real issues to do with the land property and registry sector in most of the continent, and even a lot of the emerging world. So our platform was built really to utilize technology and also just some innovative thinking to create a portal that allows, simply enough, for efficient and trustworthy property transactions. And so that's what Seso is at its core. And we built a few products, including our marketplace and then our CRM/land registry platform that we think help really assist everyone through that sort of chain, from the developers, the governments, the agents, to the final customer that buys a property. So that's what Seso is and seeks to be.
Wow. We're actually speaking, I'm thinking, because growing in Africa myself, I haven't. We always talk about the fact that people, if you want to buy a house, you want to build a house, so if you want to own a home, right, so you have to build it, put your money down, get construction, do it by yourself, do whatever. Sometimes it takes 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5 years for somebody to actually finish their house, right, before the family can move in. But I think you guys have made it so easy that it becomes much more accessible, right? And not just accessible to the local community, but people can actually understand the value of their property. Now they can understand the value of their property. And also is a level of exposure that I'm really more excited about, because now you're exposing what you're doing in Africa and the availability and the resources that we have in Africa. You're exposing it out to the world so people can actually come, inviting investors. So how has that actually been for you? Like this life-changing experience of inviting investors, coming together, but actually seeing seeing how we are raising the value of African properties?
No, these are excellent questions and points, and it's exactly what we're aiming for. And so it's very interesting. You're right. I was literally just this past week with we put together what we call the Ghana property tour, where this is the second iteration we've done, where we've had, we had this time seven really African Americans coming into Ghana for an 8-week tour, where sort of they would then go see various types of properties in Ghana. And it's very interesting to get their take on what's interesting to them, what products interested them, how they're viewing it in terms of an investment, potentially sort of moving back to the continent at a certain time frame, depending on where they're at in life. And so it's for me, and I was actually just at dinner with them last night, the final dinner. They're all leaving today. And one of the things I mentioned was, reverse brain drain. I'm sure, Rudolph, you've learned this concept of brain drain, where in fact, where a lot of very smart people who have left, for various reasons, of course. And what we're hoping to achieve is them really sort of being able to come back. And so, we've all heard the horror stories of people trying to purchase property, and then maybe someone is getting scammed or frauded, by agents, by sometimes their own family. So we are seeking to create that brand that is you're exactly right, a portal of trust for any type of home buyer, whether you are someone who's looking to repatriate back, to investors looking to buy large chunks, acres of land to develop a real estate project as well. And so that's where we're at right now as a company, and it's very exciting because I think there's a lot of influx coming back. And that's due to many different reasons, right? And especially even very interesting, I'll touch on the African American, of course, with Ghana in particular. Right. Year of return was a very sort of monumental occasion for the country, and I think it opened the doors, the floodgates, and it's gotten a lot of people at the very least interested in Ghana and the African American community, and certainly there's now a good number of them coming, and it'll swell in Christmas time for sure. And so that has become quite interesting for us, where it's not just Ghanaian diaspora or Nigerian diaspora. And these are the two countries who mostly work in, Ghana, Nigeria, as well, a bit in South Africa as well. For those two countries, they have the highest amount of remittance. And so certainly that's a market that we're very interested in. But the African-American market is something that we think will get to that level over a period of time, where there'll be more of them coming to the continent. Certainly Ghana is the first, but I think it'll start to spread out across the continent, especially as people take, their ancestry tests and then understand where they're coming from. That becomes, I think, a big thing.
You mentioned two things, right? That can just the ancestry test and also the brain drain. Brain drain, like you mentioned, this is something that every country is facing, right? Every African country is facing. I would say, every immigrant, every third world country, because some of us leave Africa, migrate to different parts of the world. We gain their skills, knowledge, experience, and now we could bring back those knowledge back home, right, to develop our people, to develop our countries, to take it to the next level. I bet you if all the Africans are around in the diaspora go back home, in the next 10 to 20 years, Africa will be very, very competitive with other continents. But that's not something that we expect to be happening at any point in time. But what I wanted to really touch on is, at what point, right, did you guys start seeing a surge? At what point did you guys start seeing sort of an increased number of requests coming in for people to start coming, like considering coming back to Africa, seeking properties in Africa? You talk about the ancestry test, right? And I know ancestry tests haven't really been for a very long time, but people are starting to realize that it's time for them to go back to their roots. But from your, company's perspective, at what point do you guys started seeing that surge coming on?
So excellent. So, I mean, for me as a Ghanaian, or really since 2018, I've seen it, right? And President announced 2019 was going to be a return. We saw throughout the year different types of, celebrities and folks coming in as well, just based off the fact that the celebrities were bringing in that awareness. In 2019, that was pretty massive as well, right? But as well, I'll say this, I also watch a lot of YouTube. And, you watch YouTube and you find that there are a lot of folks coming back, to their various countries and then looking to start something. A lot of the time, it's real estate that you're looking to get involved in as well, right? So those were sort of the two main things that really sort of got us thinking. And we do a lot of sort of videos on YouTube as well. Work with influencers on YouTube as well, and that brought in an influx of customers as well. So certainly from that base, and now our customer base is pretty much 80% diaspora, right, as well, right,
Wow.
at the moment, right. So that's really for us what makes it very, very, very interesting. That there's that sort of class of people who obviously have the brains, they've worked hard, and for various reasons, of course, they're abroad, but you find that they always have an affinity for their country, and they always want to come back at some point. And so to own some property in the country is a given, and then to own property that potentially gives them some investment return is also been very interesting. And I think the more of that happens, you find that obviously it'll bring itself some jobs as well that comes into it. And you're right. I think it'll take a while for, especially in different countries, for individuals to come back. But
Right.
I will say property is, at the end of the day, once you have a nice place to stay and things are relatively okay in your country, you will want to come back there. You will also then see the opportunity from there. And then you investing in the country is at the same time also boosting the country's future, right? So I think it ties in very well. And for the most part, people have always wanted to buy property, even during the worst of times on the
Right.
continent, regardless, people always wanted to do it. But it was about finding trustworthy means to do it sometimes, right? And so we want to be that trustworthy means for individuals who are now ready to make their first purchase or their second or third purchase,
Right.
in the continent.
In your opinion, right, what would you say has been the main challenge? I know many people are coming back, right? What has been the main challenge that you think that somebody may be very, defensive of coming back home, of coming back to Africa, or maybe even I know African Americans, like, there's the distinction between African Americans and Africans in America, right? so, so the African Americans, blacks who were born in America, who are Americans, they're trying to go back to the roots because of maybe some political reasons that they've heard or something, But what do you think has been some of the reasons why people are very, like, say, I don't want to go back to Africa, or maybe I don't have any opportunities over there? What's your take on that?
Sometimes maybe the economic situation there. That's usually a big part of the discussion, right? Sometimes also maybe dealing with security or sort of perceived as well, right? I'll give you. I mean, with respect to a place like Ghana, I would say it probably at times can be the economic situation. So an individual coming here, assuming they are going to get a job somewhere, or maybe taking a job that obviously cuts their fees to a level. I think for the most part, a lot of our customer base are individuals who understand perhaps the slow roll to that, and perhaps, especially with Ghana is going to be veering towards being more of a tourist country. And so owning units where people can rent it out is a sound enough business plan where you still have a place to stay, right? But in maybe other markets, that may be a bit different, or that may be a bit different as well. And so some individuals as well, perhaps can work from home, have jobs that allow them to work from home as well, and so can potentially own a home here and there, or perhaps sort of spend half a year there. And then obviously there are those that are looking to retire. For those individuals, they are looking for their cash to stretch a bit longer, and so
Yeah.
perhaps less, for them, they've lived a long enough life where it's like, okay, I'll deal with some of these issues, and I also have maybe a pension or some cash that was saved up for me to live, are relatively okay, right? So it's usually those who are really like still in their working stage, right? And it's obviously typically much younger people. It makes
Right.
sense, right? Where they are more like, hey, like if I own a property here, like can I live here? Can I make a life here and work here? And so perhaps for those, it might have to be something staged out over time. You can still buy property, put it
Right.
up as investment, make some passive
So
income
as
as
an
well.
investment.
Yeah, exactly that. So that I see that as probably one of the main challenges. Obviously, there are also aspects of just the type of build, like some developments, and especially on this tour, some developments were much more interesting to others as well, right? And so sometimes that's also the dynamic, right? But I think those are probably like the two main things I would say.
Right. So I took a little tour, virtual tour, so to speak, on your, I watched some of the YouTube videos and so what are some of the properties that you guys have. And so from what I gathered, they really look like American standards, right?
Mm.
Some of them really look like American standards. I was like, no, they have American standards home in Ghana and Nigeria, and this is very impressive. How did you guys kind of plan this, or is this like targeted, or are you trying to have sort of the same feeling or the same exposure? So if somebody's migrating or moving from the United States to Africa to Ghana to stay, sort of retire, right? So they don't miss any of that missing pieces. So how did you guys come up with that concept?
Yeah, no, it's very, very interesting question. So for us, it was almost more about verifying the developments in terms of their land certification, their land documents, and also sort of looking to at least certify the build in a way as well, the reputation of the developer, right? So we don't just list anyone on our site. There's a due diligence process on these particular properties to ensure they're a certain level before we present it to our customers. And so really we sell land for $5,000 all the way up to $1 million properties, right? And so it's a wide range for a diverse group of customers, right? Out there, right? And so we're what we're looking to do is provide the same level of service really for all our customers, right? And get them situated with the right information to make their decision, right? And even then as well, we have partners that we bring in, valuers, surveyors, lawyers, partners that we can bring in to the fore to assist you throughout the process, because these are obviously it's a big transaction, and you need to ensure that you have all the right parties there to assist you with your purchase, right? So yeah, I mean, for us, it's been a very interesting exercise in building this out. Today, we work with about 70 developers in Ghana, real estate developers, about 50 in Nigeria.
Okay.
And we're planning to expand that further as well, so as to provide a wider variation and options for our clients. And yeah, it's been very exciting, sort of understanding which developments are perhaps more popular to certain segments,
Right.
and then sort of really then strategizing potentially, with investors and developers as to how to build out, their developments to fit certain customers.
So that's very interesting because now I'm thinking, right, for some countries, and I think one of the reasons why people have, or some of the foreigners have been very, not some are like immigrants. So people like us who have left Africa, gain citizenship overseas, right? Then you want to come back to Africa. It seems like you've lost your citizenship for your country, for your home country, right? So that may be a hindering factor for somebody to say, I'm not a citizen of the country, and they may price me different because I'm a foreigner, right? So do you see that as a factor, and how has that actually played in your understanding of your market? Do you think that people who see themselves as foreigners no longer belonging to that country, do you think they have some withholding factor of not necessarily in making investment or considering moving back to Africa?
Yeah, I would say I still don't think I think still, obviously, I think you should soldier on, but I will say obviously that in Ghana and in Nigeria you can hold dual citizenship, and so perhaps I don't know as well some of the nuances involved in not
Right.
being able to have that, right? But I mean, I will say, of course, yeah, I will say that in terms of owning land, I'm sure foreigners can own land in Ghana, in Nigeria, and I'm sure in other countries, regardless of that particular law. And so, as long as you are able to own the land legally, and sort of the courts protect your ownership of that particular land, I don't think that's something that should stop you from owning a piece of the continent. Because I do believe that is where there'll be wealth generation, and really, for the most part, is just because of the fact that it's been hard to understand who owns what and where, what's the does this guy own the property, what's the type of build, all of these questions, around really trust and transparency have stopped investors, large and small homeowners, from purchasing and dealing with the property sector. And so I think if you can provide that funnel that is trustworthy, a lot of people will be then, be much more comfortable for them to engage in that process, right? Because there's a massive opportunity on the continent. In fact, when you look at it, even in West Africa, the beachfront is unused. And I think that's just because most of West Africa never really dealt with tourism.
Yep.
Not really tourist countries. I think that's changing. So that is a whole opportunity on itself, right? To take advantage, because the rest of Africa does take advantage of their beachfront. Usually that's the most prime property in any country at the beach.
Right.
And so there are things like that that have been unused. Prime land has been unused just because investors, individuals just don't want to deal with the hassle of purchasing a particular piece of property and realizing, man, it's a scam or fraud, right? And so I think
Right.
that is more of a bigger issue than I think passport, because as long as a foreigner can purchase property, I think you should try and do it yourself.
Yeah, I know you mentioned trust, and trust is actually a very big issue because sometimes even within our local community in Africa, you buy a property, people may have a tendency of selling the property to more than one person. To more than one person, right? For their own personal gains. But you guys are providing a platform of trust, right? Seso Global is providing a platform of trust where individuals from all over the world have an opportunity and the same direct access to these properties, and they can definitely make their investment knowing that their investment is secure. You guys are providing that aspect of trust. You have lawyers, you have bankers, you have banks who you've partnered with so far. I think I read that you guys partner with about 150 property developers, banks and lawyers who are there to protect the interests of the investment and the investor.
Yes, exactly that. And so that's part of creating a circle of trust. Obviously, the banks, especially if they're providing a mortgage, will do their due diligence on any property that they provide a mortgage on. We obviously provide our layer of due diligence, and our lawyer partners as well do the same. Even the property developers as well, because they will ensure that the land that they're building on is litigation free, right, before sort of selling you the property. And so that's why we really targeted them as key partners for this. Certainly, we can assist you with finding land, outside of development, but there's obviously a much higher level of risk there. And so we still obviously work with our lawyer partners to do the checks on that particular property. At the very, we're at the very least, that I think is something that is very important to do, especially if you are doing it outside of development, or even with a development, I would still do it, just to put yourself at ease. But certainly when it's outside of development, we encourage you to work with the lawyers to go check on that particular property before making that purchase, right? But I think we're getting better at snuffing out any type of fraud and whatnot as well. That's something that we've made a real focus from the start. And I think it's paying off now.
Nice. So for somebody, for somebody who wants to contact you, for somebody who wants to return to Africa, who is interested in real estate in Africa, what will you tell them?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, of course, if you're looking for property, please visit the website, www.seso.global. We'll be very quick to come back to you. We have capable agents that will assist you through that whole process, will answer all your questions and ensure that you're very comfortable before your purchase. And so just feel free in that regard to sort of find our website and then sort of look for us in that regard. But I'll say, the interesting thing about the continent more than anything is that I think more than anything, obviously, it's been a few years since a lot of these countries came out of colonialism. Like anything else, it was never going to be perfect. Obviously, we had whole hope to be much better than it was. It's not going to be perfect. But you find that a lot of these countries are at least sitting at the point where they are somewhat peaceful. Things are somewhat moving in a direction, and it's not a point where we have crazy wars, crazy famines all over the place. Not like it used to be, certainly in the past. So what you're finding is that with the advent of the fact that there's going to be a much larger young population for the continent, which obviously can be a bad thing if not you sort of work done well. But let's see it as a positive, where there's a lot of young people who are now have a lot of access to technology, right? Certainly not the full continent of young people, but there's a very vast amount of young people in certain metropolis who have access to a lot of information. And I think because of this, we're due for renaissance in the country, in the country as these youth, start to get into the various businesses themselves, but also start to get into adulthood. And so what the opportunity can be then is to invest in that. And one of the, I think, easiest ways to sort of look at that is property, because there is that tangible worth to it. And as long as the government you are dealing with is not a kangaroo, a government, your land should be secure, right? And so that's really sort of, I think, my real sort of, I guess, pitch in a way to those out there who have been interested but perhaps been hesitant. I think if you're willing to sort of work with us on this journey, we can find you properties that make sense for you, in the way in which perhaps you're looking at investment, retirement, or repatriation as well. And yeah, I think it's Africa's time more than anything. And so yeah, for us, like I said, reverse brain drain is the thing. I think that is really like the real thing here is to create that avenue for that. And I think a lot of circumstances in the world have put the continent at a place where it can benefit from this. And so obviously now it's about execution, right? Making sure we execute properly on that.
Yeah, and this is excellent, excellent point. We touched back on that reverse brain drain. So for somebody who is interested and wants to have a property in Ghana, and they contact you guys, do they have to come to Ghana in person for that transaction to happen effectively or complete, or can they be wherever they are and get it done, then have their investment managed, or how can they go about the process?
No, very good point. So I'll say this: we will do virtual tours for you, where maybe we'll get on a Zoom or a WhatsApp video call and sort of showcase the property to you as well. So we do sort of provide that service. And I will say, most of the time, people who purchase without coming, and there have been people who have done that, typically buy land. So whereas land is a bit easier. Okay, I'm just buying it. This is a location, fair enough. But there have been a good chunk of people who bought, perhaps they'll have their family member or someone lead the transaction on the ground, go see the place, and then purchase it. But of course, it's of course there are a lot of people who have also decided, okay, I like this, but when I come here in 3 months, that's when I'll look at it. So it's been a wide variation. I think it depends on your style, what you're buying it for as well,
Right.
And what type of property it is, right? Yeah, the cost and everything else.
What do you see as some of the risks factors that may impact, like some of the risk factors that a potential customer may face, doing business with you guys or with your team, or just considering making this investment move?
Yeah, I'll say that obviously there's nothing like zero risk, but we sort of try to add layers that remove a lot of those. So I mentioned we work with developers typically who have a reputation. I've worked with the banks. I've worked with banks before, which typically de-risk things. Once a bank has approved a particular development as a partner, it means they've done their search on that particular property,
Right.
make sure that that particular property meets a certain threshold. So those are things that we utilize. Obviously, we go to the site as well, we view the documents, but we always mention that it's important to use also a lawyer, regardless of all the things that we said here, because it really removes that risk at a very high. I mean, once a lawyer has checked and then has checked at the registry and the information there says this land is correct, you then have that lawyer. So the lawyer is sort of obviously very liable if he comes back with wrong information, right? Of course, the risk in any place can be maybe the political landscape. Obviously, we in Ghana and Nigeria, these are two different countries, and depending on who you ask, have different sort of ways in which the governments operate, right? And so perhaps that's one thing, regardless of what emerging country you go to, will be there. But I think if you have a positive outlook, you realize that all of these things can move in a very positive direction. I think they will as well on that regard. So that really probably is the only real risk working with us in an emerging country like a Ghana or a Nigeria. That's the one thing in any country, yeah.
So I know you guys are currently based right now in Ghana and Nigeria as your main hub, right? And you said you guys are doing some small work over there in South Africa. Do you
Yeah.
guys anticipate moving to other parts of Africa, especially to the other French-speaking parts of Africa?
Hey. No, very, very important. I think exactly, yes. So we're investigating a few countries: Rwanda, Kenya, Cameroon, as well, Senegal, right? Ivory Coast, right? So we're investigating some of these countries. Obviously, want to move in with a splash and do it well as well, right? Make sure that we are not, I don't want anyone complaining about us giving a lower level of service because we moved to this country. Right? I want to make sure that it's the same level of service that we're providing in all of these countries. And so certainly that is the goal. It's a model that we think we can achieve and expand. Obviously, as a startup, we have to make sure that we're focused on certain elements before we scale too much. But I think we've put together a good cast of partners that can even allow us to expand with them, including some of the banks, like EcoBank and others who are in 36 different countries. We're working with them on a mortgage product that will run through our platform for the diaspora in each individual country, starting in Ghana. And so it's something where we could move with them into these various countries with a big splash and then get the right amount of support there, right? And so those are aspects that we're thinking of quite a bit. And of course, we are a startup that continues to raise capital as well.
Right.
And of course, the more capital we get, the more resources we have, the more we can then consider moving to some of these countries. So we're just trying to be very deliberate with it, but certainly it's a model that can work in each country as long as the country is somewhat stable. It should be able to work in them.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. We can talk about stability and also, most of the African countries. And it's great that, you guys have that, the module is geared or tailored towards achieving that level of it, that extent, reaching out to the ends of Africa, touching every country. My hope is that, and I think that's your vision as well, that at some point, maybe in the next 5, 10 to 20 years, Seso Global will be a recognized brand in the whole of Africa when it comes to property management. Is that right?
100%, really, 100%. That would be a dream, and so that's exactly what we want out there. Where there are obviously brands like Remax and others, in the States, etc. Right, which are known brands as brokers. There, we want that brand recognition as well for Seso to be noted as something that is trustworthy and transparent, right? And it's utilizing technology to make the process much more efficient, right? And so, yeah, that's exactly that across the continent. It'd be fantastic, and it's very interesting for us as well if we can expand pretty quickly, because then it'll be easy for me to travel across Africa as well. Easy trip for me as well across the continent, which is I think something that is a stated goal for me. It's a massive continent. Sometimes we forget we can actually put China, the United States, Europe into the continent. That massive. There's a lot of land and wealth across the continent, and I think it's something that really, when you really think about it, some of our chiefs and family of even governments who own some of these prime lands should be churning out millions and millions of dollars just from the land, just from that particular asset. We should have chiefs that are billionaires across the continent just because they own assets. When you think about some of the most liquid companies, some of the companies, the most massive sort of entities out there, a lot of them own real estate. A lot of people become billionaires off real estate, right? And so I think the reason why that hasn't happened is just because there isn't that level of trust that allows investors, small or big, to put their capital into the continent. And so that's what we're hoping to change.
Wow. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm really great that, I've had opportunity to learn more about Seso Global and the work that you guys are doing over there, both in Nigeria and in Ghana. We have a growing audience, which is very, very excited, very diverse as well. So if somebody want to get in contact with you and, touch base with you guys who listen to this episode and they say, you know what, I've really been thinking about this, I'm considering this, or I may know somebody who knows somebody who is interested in this, how can they get in contact with you on any social media platform?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Kweku Essien on there. Of course, you have the website as well, www.seso.global. I can share my email. I don't know if you put a link down, but I can give it to you as well. It's just K, my last name at seso.global as well. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. We're happy to help and then partner with those that are interested. It's an exciting time for the continent, an exciting time for us at Seso, and we just want to deal with people who have that positive spirit as well, and really want to get things done. And so it might not all end up, in as Wakanda in day one, but I think we're slowly getting to a place where we can build out, very interesting sceneries and locations and environments for our people just off the back of the real estate we own.
This is amazing, man. It's been an amazing conversation. And guys, thank you so much, Mr. Kweku Essien, for being on the show. I'm really excited for the chat that we've had today. And for all our viewers, go to seso.global, to get more information about their work. And if you're interested, just want to view the true nature of Africa, not what you watch on CNN, right? What is the true nature of Africa? What Africa real estate is and what it is becoming. So Seso Global is at the forefront of that, and we're really excited to be part of their show, part of their work to showcase their work to the world. Reach out to them on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm gonna put in their contact and social media information in the show notes, and if you can reach out to them, that would be great for more information. Mr. Essien, it's been a great conversation with you, and I can't wait to have you again on the show to speak about all the multiple things that you're doing. Just one last question: what has been your motivation? I know you have a lot of things going on, but what's been your motivation? Driving. We look both young and ambitious, but what has been your motivation so far?
Yeah, no, I had a great childhood in Ghana, and so I want to live in Ghana. And so really the biggest motivation for me is just to build out a Ghana that is, one worth living in. So that's probably like the biggest thing. Obviously, I've seen a lot of the continent now, and I must say that I was wowed by Rwanda in particular, because obviously we watched the movie, or at least heard of what happened there. It was like all inspiring just to see that a country that was maybe 20, 25, a few years or so ago in shambles was at where it was. And it helped me, sometimes it is important to see an example, of
Right.
something that can be done. This is very interesting to see the world building that has happened there, where they built basically a different world for themselves.
Wow.
And I want to see the same in Ghana and all over the continent.
Wow. That's it, guys. So it's Africa's time. So like Mr. Kweku mentioned, it's Africa's time, and I think that it takes each and every one of us, especially for us African immigrants in the diaspora. It's an opportunity for us to make an investment back in our continent, but also for everyone out there to see what Africa truly is about and what Africa can actually produce for you. So it's been an amazing show. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, make sure you do so, because I'm going to be having Mr. Essien again in the next couple of months or the next couple of weeks to check in to see how much work they're doing so far. Download this episode on Apple Podcasts and all your best podcast platforms that you're currently listening on. Thank you guys so much, and see you on the next episode.